This is Ashley Mullenix, and not only does she sell life insurance, but she is literally a super mom as well. So we're going to be talking about how she sells $20,000 of final expense premium over the phone every month, but then also how she is able to balance life, business, and everything in between.
I've always, I guess you could say, bet on myself. I am the type of person to where when my mind is made up, I just act and I do. So then when I was presented an idea of like, hey, this is a good work from home position with flexibility, this is life insurance, I made the decision and I was all in.
Ashley, how did you get into the final expense business?
It was a journey for sure, and not something like everyone says. It's not something you plan to do, right? It just kind of finds you.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it was for me. I was looking for a position where I could work from home, still have flexibility to be a mom. I still wanted to go to field trips and do the mom thing and have my weekends free. So I put my application or resume, what have you, out into the internet. And I had gotten a phone call from a 3-letter IMO that is well known for calling people who have resumes out there on Indeed. And I found myself in a Zoom room getting pitched a really cool position, total flexibility. You know, you can do whatever you want. You just got to sell this thing. And it seemed pretty simplistic. So I jumped in, and a week later, I was licensed. And that's how it
Wow.
came to be. Yeah.
Yeah. What it's interesting because you and I both have like seen different agencies, like the whole industry. I feel like once you get in, you get a clear grasp of like what people paint it to be. And then on the flip side, right? Like how different reality is compared to
So
how it's
different.
portrayed. What are some things like, right, for new agents out there, maybe even moms out there that are kind of looking into an opportunity like this? What are some things that you have learned in the business over the past few years that have like that you feel like would be valuable for somebody else looking into this opportunity or just getting started in the opportunity?
Yeah, I definitely just want to highlight that it's not easy. Like, it's not, I mean, it's a simple thing,
Yeah.
that you do, but it's not easy. There's, it's a picture that is painted that, yeah, especially, when I was on that interview room and they were like, here's the breakdown of how, this is so beneficial. Like, wouldn't you want this? And it's like, yeah, that sounds great. So this is easy, right?
Yeah.
It is not that simple. Trying to get someone across a finish line to get them to understand the need, even though they kind of have a want to get them through it. There's a process to it, and there's a big learning curve in this industry. And if you don't have the right mentorship, you will fail. There's a
Yeah.
reason people lose, and they lose big. And there's tons of horror stories in this industry. So it's just word of caution coming into it. It is possible to do well, but you have to do your due diligence, and don't drink the Kool-Aid hype. If you see anyone slinging a money gun, you run. You
Yeah.
run.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
the crazy part is like you definitely can make a lot of money in this industry. There's tons of people doing it, but there's a reason 92% of insurance agents fail. And I think like if advice for you guys that are watching this, I would definitely say one, do your due diligence, just like Ashley said, but then also whatever you feel like is hard, just like imagine this industry 10 times harder or 100 times or 1,000 times harder, right? Because there's so much unforeseen things that most people are going to say. They're not going to tell you about the chargebacks you could get after you get the money deposited in your bank. They're not going to tell you about leads. They're not going to tell you about uplines holding contracts. They're not going to tell you about these things. So make sure that you watch out for those. And you ask those questions, right? And I have a lot of content that goes into that, but just make sure that you guys are doing your due diligence in that regard. One thing that I love that you said, you're in the community, we're in the Zoom rooms talking, and you said something very interesting that I think that I really want to like talk more about here. Is you said you just got off, made 3 sales, I don't know, $2,000 to $3,000 in approved business, and you're like, we're like, let's go for a fourth, right? And you're like, it's a fine line between doing that, but I also like want to spend time with my family. I want to be able to um like cook dinner, like do mom duties, right? Things that you feel like you've been called to, that you are now. Talk a little bit more about that for people that are like watching. Like, what is it like being a mom and being a business owner?
Yeah, it's a balancing act that I'm still working on mastering. If I'm being 100% transparent about it. Because there are days, what was it? Monday, I had gotten two policies and it was 11 o'clock in the morning. And I'm like, okay, I could walk away. Like I can just leave the computer, but it's one of those things where I set time for the business. So I will no matter what be here at least until 3. And then, if I have to work overtime to get to my goal, I'll do that. Initially, when you first start out, especially as a mom coming into the industry, like do realize the beginning is going to be the hardest because of that learning curve. You have to be able to put in a lot of hours until you build up that skill set. But if you have, again, you have a good mentor, you have, all the tools that you need in your toolbox, that learning curve should not be that long. I mean, you literally could learn that and be profitable and being on a good schedule within a period of like 3 weeks. If you have someone there really helping you and holding your hand through it, it should not take you that long. But do be prepared in the beginning to really eat, breathe, sweat, all things, final expense. And then on the other side of it, there is it is greener on the other side, so to speak. You can be a mom, you can cook dinner, and you can make money while still going on field trips. It's possible.
Yeah. And that's cool that you're living proof of that. I feel like the industry needs more of that. And so it's cool you really finding your voice in this whole industry when so many, I don't know, there's so many different people out there and like that's possible, right? With the
Mm-hmm.
opportunity. Talk a little like let's go into like what is actually needed, right? What is somebody that's coming into this space? What are the skills they need to acquire that you acquired that has allowed you to scale to like past 15 to $20,000 in improved business like consistently?
You have to be coachable. I mean, that's the number one thing.
Yeah.
I don't have a background of salesmanship. I mean, for the latter half, the beginning of my youth, I mean, I worked at Best Buy for, gosh, I bled blue for like 5 years or so. And then my husband joined the army. Then I was a stay at home mom. I was a military wife. And then I worked in the hospital. I became a respiratory therapist. I did that for 3 years and, decided I'm not going to be stuck in the ICU in my 50s. I don't like doing this. Did a little bit of real estate, and that's not salesman. That's not sales. That's different.
Yeah.
You don't sell houses; you show them. You're just there for the contract. So, um, it is a sales position, and you need to be coachable. But you can come into the industry again if you have a good mentor. You have a good system in place that you're jumping into. It is something that is easy to learn, but you have to be coachable because you have to review your calls. You have to want to be better than you were yesterday. Because if you don't have that hunger, if you're not really wanting to master this, you'll fail. You'll give up. That negative voice is so loud in this industry. You know that, Johnny. Like when I was talking to you, I struggled so bad with the negative thoughts, right?
Yeah.
They can come in and they weigh you down so quickly. So if you're not really hungry for it and you're not willing to put in the front end work to master the skill set, then I definitely would say this is like not the space for you. You won't
Yeah.
get to the place where you have the mom freedom that you want if you're not coachable.
Yeah, you have a rock solid mindset. Like when you and I talked, you've obviously like invested into things. Like you're not afraid to do that. You've all like it seems like every single step of your whole journey, you've bet on yourself consistently, going from like straight like being in the ICU right to or the NICU right to being now being a full blown entrepreneur, making you literally
It's
eat what you
crazy.
kill, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
it is crazy, right?
it's
So
a whole different world over here.
yeah, but like talk about that mindset, like betting on yourself, because you've done that time and time again.
Yeah, betting on yourself. It's it's so interesting because I've always, I guess you could say, bet on myself. I am the type of person to where when my mind is made up, I just act and I do. Right? So when I had decided that I want to go work in the hospital, my question was, do I want to do respiratory or do I want to do nursing? I made a decision and then I was all in and I never looked back. Right? When I wanted to get out of the hospital, I decided on real estate and I was all in. So then when I was presented an idea of like, hey, this is a good work from home position with flexibility, this is life insurance, I made the decision and I was all in. I have on my journey encountered some people where they're not all in. You know what I mean? Like there's shiny object syndrome, and it becomes a struggle for them mindset wise. Like you have to be hyper focused and not look at other, because there's a lot. I mean, you think it's just final expense,
Yeah.
but there's so much more noise that you get berated with. And I'm sorry, I completely spaced. What was the initial point of the question?
No,
I feel
like
like I went to
what,
left
like
field.
you betting on yourself consistently,
Yeah,
right?
betting on yourself. So I do that by just being all in. I bet on myself because I make a decision and I just move forward on it. I don't I don't make the decision and then try to backtrack and divert to another decision. Like at no point in time in final expense have I thought I'm going to sell mortgage protection. I mean, it would probably be fitting. I mean, I know real estate really well. I did it for 2 years, but I was all in on final expense, and I'm
Yep.
still all in on final expense. And that's how I just have that. This is the only option. This was my decision, and I'm gonna do it.
How important is it for somebody to like really niche down into one product? Um, yeah, like what would you say to that?
I think in anything in life, you need to niche down into one one product. On all aspects of
Yeah.
everything. You know, I don't think you need to just kind of grasp at the wind, right? Like it says in Ecclesiastes, I'm just grasping at the wind. Anything that comes this way, I'm just, flowing with it, and that you can be swayed so
Yep.
easily. If you can, and if that's your personality, because listen, I know people in my personal life, they will admit like they are very indecisive. They don't know how to start and make a decision and like stick to it. And they know that. And if you know that about yourself, this is not the space for you. You can't, the mindset that you need in this space, that it's not for you.
Yeah. Is that something that you've always had, or is that something that you've developed as being an entrepreneur?
That is actually something I've always had. I've always had. Like when I've made a decision, I just do it. And it's so funny because my husband, he'll say, and it's happened a couple times where I'll wake up one day and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go do this. And he's like, okay. And no question, I'll just do it. I will just, if I make the decision, I just somehow get it done. And it's not, he laughs about it because he says it is just a unique quality about you, Ashley. That is just how you are. And I don't know where it comes from. I make a decision, I move on it, you know?
Yeah.
But it leads me to all these places. Like I made a decision. I needed to get in contact with you, and it was a great decision. And then I made that decision. And when
Yeah.
opportunities are presented, I quickly weigh pros and cons, and then I make the decision and I move forward with that decision. I don't look back, right? So when I made a decision to join Do Ford, that was my decision, and I'm not going to look back at the opportunity I had over here because
Yep.
that's done. I'm right here.
Yep. Yeah, and that's really important to be all in, right? If you're trying to like straddle the fence, um, like that's indecision. That's a decision right there. Indecision is a decision, and so if you guys want
Yeah.
to be successful, you have to be able to decide and figure out, right? Like take action, make a decision, take action quick, and then you cement that decision as you put more energy, thought, like actual things behind that. Um, you it's interesting because not everybody that comes into this industry is willing to do the boring stuff, right? They like Alex Hormozy always talks about, like it's about the boring work. But it's interesting because I've realized that's a unique quality that you have, is being willing to do the boring work long like after many other people might quit. And I remember a few moments when I was like, "What are you up to?" And you're like, "I'm doing call reviews." And I was like, "That's interesting because not many agents are willing to do that, right? That's part of the boring work that does breed success. What are some other like things that you would say that are so like that are boring to do, that are so blatantly obvious that you should do as a final expense agent, that will help agents make more money, make more sales, become like an expert at it, that they're not doing, would you say?
You want to know what it is? Because it's
Yeah.
like super dial.
Well,
Boring to dial, make your dials. That is the honestly call reviews to me. I love call reviews. I think
yeah.
they're so fun. I like hearing my tone because when I review my calls, I know what I was thinking during the call. I knew where my mind was going. I knew where I was leading it. But when you go back and you listen and you're like pulled out of that situation, you're like, oh, actually, when she said that, I didn't actually hear what she said. She meant something else. So call reviews to me are not boring, but I do believe that they're absolutely essential. Absolutely essential. If you're not reviewing your own calls and you are struggling, that's a big piece of the puzzle that you're missing.
Yeah, for sure.
Review your calls. There was one gentleman in I don't even remember his name, but he was saying that when he talked to his mentor, he was told, he listened to like the beginning half of the call and he was like, dude, you sound like you're high. Like that's your problem. Like you sound like you're under the influence of something. And he went back and he listened to himself and he's like, oh, you're right. I sound like I'm like there's something off. And so he changed his tone. He picked up his beat a little bit more and now he's a top producer. And it is as simple as just reviewing your call. Like, how do you sound? I mean, because that's all we have is our voice.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's some really important. When you're selling over the phone, what are some like the top 3 things, right? The top 3 tips that you could give an agent that's wanting to sell over the phone, that you have like picked up after selling hundreds of thousands of dollars like of premium, like final expense specifically. Like what does it take to master that? Like the 3 tips that you would say.
3 tips of being on the phone. Number one, stick to your script. Always stick to your script. When I lose a sale that I know should have been a sale, I look back at that call. I'm like, you were not on script at all. That was your problem. There's a systematic approach to it. So as long as you have a good script, stick to the script. Number 2, listen. You need to be able to listen. I mean, everyone has a different story. Everyone has a different need or a pain point of why. And if you're not listening, these seniors, they're smart. Okay. They're much older than you. They've been around the block a time or two and they know when they don't want to talk to someone. That's one thing too that really kind of grinds my gears in this industry. You hear a lot of agents kind of snark at the demographic of people that we work with and we're trying to help. But at the end of the day, they have a lot of wisdom and they're not stupid, right? Mm-hmm. So stop with a negative talk about the people you're trying to serve and help. I don't love that about the industry, but so those are number 2, listen, stick to your script. And number 3, most important. That's a tough one because there's so many different little nuances. I guess it would just be getting really good at front end objection handling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I completely agree with that. I want to go a little bit deeper, like into number 1. The very first thing, what'd you say again for number 1?
Script.
Really good. Yeah, scripting, right? So if somebody, I can already hear people that are watching this saying, "Hey, everybody's different, everybody's unique. What if they start going off script and talking about things that are just not relevant to the conversation? How are you getting them back onto the script?"
Yeah, that's great. So, Johnny, that's a great question. Everyone's irrelevant and they get off a script. I totally understand. But what was your date of birth again?
That's good.
You just acknowledge, repeat back what you're hearing so they feel heard, and then on to the next part of the script. You have to be so comfortable in your script that that, yes, we can have a little side conversation and then I'm going to get right back to where I was. Because if you are in the middle of underwriting and then they start to get you into numbers and, coverage options, and then you start to, you've lost the sale. They've taken control of the situation and it's gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are like For you with like where you're at, right? Knowing everything that you know, why do you choose the path of like generating your own leads rather than like buying leads from vendors?
Ugh, I've had a journey there, Johnny. I've done a little bit of everything. I've done a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
So the first, I've been in the industry for just over, oh my gosh, over a year now, about moving on a year and a half. And I've been with 5 IMOs, 5 in total. Most of them were all the Kool-Aid hype drinking, but the first IMO I was with, it was all about aged leads. So it was pennies on the dollar, but spend $1,200, and start dialing.
How are
And
those?
then awful, but it was also awful about those aged leads is I had zero training. And this is me just getting my license and jumping into the field, knowing nothing. And it was a lot of, you would show up to the meetings, there'd be hype, Kool-Aid fest, dial. And so you're like, okay, all I do is dial. They gave you a script, you'd follow the script, but the script was awful. And then, I lost a lot of money. I was there 3 weeks. I think I was in the red about $2,400. Was doing research on YouTube and realized I needed to jump ship. So then I was like, well, I'm not going to spend money on leads. I'm going to go somewhere where there's free leads. So then I found another IMO that's big in the money gun thing. And they're all about the trips. We're going to Amsterdam. We're going to, the whole thing. And I was there for about 4 months, free leads. They've been cycled through, called a million times. Training, they said that they had the training. It was not the greatest. I think in that time I did 4 policies. And it was just really hard. It was really, really hard. It was during that time I kind of ran into like the NEPQ, Jeremy Minor thing, and I started to question what I was doing in the industry and how you were supposed to talk to someone to sell to them. And so here I am 4 or 5 months in, and I still don't know how to sell. I'm drifting in the wind, if you will. There's no guidance. And I think this is where a lot of agents are. They're struggling. They're not closing anything. You are literally drifting in the wind because you're not questioning anything. Like, look up, take a breath. What you're doing is not working.
Yep.
And I was there, but I was drinking the Kool-Aid. Like when I was at that IMO, I had 3 people join under me, and these are people that I know. They're still my friends, right? But they all 3 failed out. And it was just not awesome. So I had dinky old cheap leads you buy in mass quantity. Then I had the free leads that everyone else is calling. Then I had leads that were free, but it was outbound dialing, but the commission structure was not wonderful. So you would just get X amount of dollars for every policy you closed. However, training was phenomenal, right?
Yeah.
So I was able to build up my skill set there. However, because the commission structure payout, I couldn't be a mom. I could not be a mom. I was working Saturdays, and then I would show up at 8 a.m. and I wouldn't leave till 7:30 because I had to get so many policies so that I could earn enough money for it to even make sense. And then I wasn't cooking dinner. Then I completely forgot that it was like Thanksgiving potluck at the school. And so I'm running to the store, getting pre-made potatoes, trying to show up, and I'm frazzled, and it's just not where I wanted to be. And then my next lead source beyond that was inbound dials. Those are expensive. But I thought, hey, this is how, now that I have a skill set, I'll just get people calling me. I'll sit back. I'll close them all day. And not the case. Those are not that special. So kind of going through all of that, I knew having leads being like generated on a platform and coming to me to where I would wake up and I would have 15 people kind of raise their hand was the best source. Also, the most cost effective if you can figure out how to generate it yourself, because there's still carriers that you can buy those types of leads. They're just still expensive.
Yeah.
Right. But then, like you, Johnny, that's what you teach agents is how to self-generate, because that's, in my opinion, the best way to get leads.
Yeah. You had to go through a learning curve, right? Of becoming a marketer, right? And so it's definitely different. What would your advice be to somebody that is like, okay, you've been through a lot. A lot of agents have as well. They're like, okay, I'm going to buy leads. Okay, no, I'm going to go free leads. No, I need to go back to buying leads, but that's not the move. So I need to generate them. But that's a whole nother like learning curve. Talk about like what helped you throughout that learning curve of you know how to sell. I need to learn how to market and like balancing the two hats of making sure that your leads are good, but then also be like still being a sales like woman.
Yeah, that's a lot. That is a lot. I think coming through the mud, if you will, that I've been through and kind of experiencing a little bit of everything, I would definitely advise someone to come in and find an IMO that does have good training, that genuinely will, coach you and train you through some things. And then there's two forms of thought. You can take a course and learn how to market, like learn how to bring people in and connect all these things on the back end, which is what I did, right?
Yeah,
Hiring you essentially to teach me that skill set. Or there are IMOs out there where you don't have to learn how to do that. You can actually just pay for it to be done for you,
yeah,
and it's like automated. So there's two ways to go about doing it. As long as you are in that space of it, though, I think that you'll be okay. Whether you want to learn, it's a lot when you take on the I need to learn how to market and
yeah,
manage that. So be prepared. It's gonna front end again, the front end, right? You're gonna put in the hours and grind it out. But once you get it down, there's light on the other side.
for sure. Yeah. So, what parts of the like? What do you see? Because we're like in dial rooms all the time. You've probably heard hundreds, maybe thousands of agents to this point, like literally dialing. What are some common mistakes that you're seeing agents make in this script that's not allowing them to close a ton of deals like you?
Mm, well, first off, I think the very beginning half, watching a lot of agents in the dial room, you're not paying attention to what you're doing. You're talking or you're on your phone while you're dialing. So the second someone picks up the phone, you're already a little behind tempo of where you need to be, right? As far as jumping into the script. And then secondly, it's a lot of it's the tone. It's the tone. Sometimes agents come off very abrasive, and I don't think that they understand that. And it's like you're coming across not pleasant to listen to. And then other people, it's like they're being so, I don't even know how to describe it. It almost comes off like you're a little disrespectful because you're making it sound like they just don't know anything. And again, they've been around the block or time or two. They're not ignorant. They may just need you to educate them real quick. The difference between term and a whole life, great. Term terminates, whole life is there for your whole life. They get it. They got it. You don't have to talk to them like they're a toddler, I think is another issue that some agents have. And then obviously there are other agents that they don't stick to the script. You can hear them constantly. Every phone call's a little bit different and they jump around.
Yeah.
So again, I guess it goes back to like those three things that we were talking about, like the core things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Review your calls, know what you sound like, and stick to the script.
Yeah.
Stick to your script.
Yeah, it's super important to do that. So let's go into like some role play, right? Because you're really good at objection handling, closing, really, really, really solid on that, and just making sure that you follow the same process over and over and over again. So if somebody's like, hey, you call them, you're dialing them, these people all filled out the forms on Facebook, and you're like, hey, I really actually I already got coverage.
No, that's fantastic. I guess most people that I talk to, they already have some coverage in place. Are you looking to add to that, or are you trying to find something more affordable?
I just want to add to it. I was just looking into some better rates.
Okay, you want to add to and look into some better rates. Well, the way that I'm able to help you with that is I'm a broker, and I'm right back into the script. Now I'm about to tell them how I'm about to help them, and we're into underwriting questions.
Yeah. I've got so many quotes already, and I don't think that you're gonna beat that. Like I've got a pretty good rate already.
Oh, well, good. I'm happy to hear that. Well, I mean, do you have just a minute or two right now to see if it? Oh, hold on. I don't have my script in front of me. So you already say that again. Sorry.
Yeah, I've gotten so many quotes already. I don't know. They're just quoting me so much. It's like so expensive.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Yeah. So they've been pretty expensive. You know, Johnny, I just helped a guy yesterday save like 17 bucks a month and he was able to get out of a 2 year waiting period. I guess, do you have just like a minute or two right now to see if I could even help you in that same way?
No, I mean, I don't like how could you help?
Well, I do, as a broker, I get to look at 26 different carriers for you. Most agents can only look at one. And so I'm able to kind of have these carriers be a little bit of competitive for you. So what's your date of birth? Let's see if I can help you. And then I just
Uh
right back into the
that's good. Yeah. Somebody's like, "Hey, Ashley, like you're great. Nothing against you.
no one's ever said that, but that's new.
You're
Let's go.
great.
That's
Nothing
new.
against you. But Ashley, like I'm really gonna need to think this over. Like I've never had a policy before, and yeah, I just really need to think about this.
Yeah, I totally understand. And I want you to think about it, Johnny. It's really important. I guess, you know, most families that I talk to, when they say that they do want to think about it, most of the time it's because there's not an option that's affordable for you. Is that the case for you?
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
yeah, $100 is kind of pushing it for me.
Yeah, kind of pushing it. Well, we definitely, Johnny, we never want it to be a situation where it's either putting food on the table or paying for your life insurance, right? Most families that I work with, they are on a fixed income. So they're either receiving Social Security or disability. So let me ask you this, and then I'll requote. I mean, honestly, I don't ever get that objection because I'm pretty good at pricing out that objection ahead of time. But at that point in time, I would go back and I would pitch them on a lower product. You know, maybe it was $60 a month that was better for them. And then I would let them know, hey, most families typically what we'll do is we'll see if we can first get you approved for this coverage. And then do know if you feel like you do want to add to or, even bring it down the $50 a month. We have 30 days to make any kind of necessary changes to the policy. But and then essentially would that help you in any way?
Yeah.
You got to
So
down close them.
are you getting any like social objections or banking objections, or are those pretty like pre-handled, would you say?
It's interesting that you asked that. So I don't really pre-handle social. I do pre-handle banking in the beginning of my script, right before I even do any underwriting questions. I figure out if we have a checking account or a direct express card right out the gate. If they're not a viable option and they want to do check by mail, cut bait, we're done with the conversation. But for social, I don't prepare for that at all. I think for me, I don't get a lot of social objections at all. And I think it's just the way I pitch it to them. And then obviously it's, I think, the trust that was built, my tonality, my pace, like they know I know what I'm doing and that I'm the best person to help them. So it's like a built-in trust, I feel.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about like, okay, the banking stuff. What's kind of like your thought process with that?
With banking,
When you're getting it like before the medically underwriting.
yeah, so obviously I need to know if they have a direct express card or if they have, I mean, because it limits the carriers. Some carriers I can't even do direct express.
So how are you asking? Let's role play that for like agents out there.
Yeah, Johnny. So all these carriers that I work with, they do take certain forms of payment while others do not. Do you have a traditional checking account with a bank or do you use a direct express card from the government?
I use a direct express card.
Okay, yeah, that's not a problem. And just to make sure that I am finding you like the absolute best plan, if we did find something that was comfortable and affordable and gave you peace of mind, would you at all be able to have access to a routing and account number with a bank?
No, I'm not. Like this is the only thing I have.
Okay, that's not a problem. No big deal. Okay, so direct express card, click it. I'll say that out loud so they know that I am choosing an option where they can only look at direct express. And then if it's a direct express, it's a direct express. I still write it.
And then bank account, are you just kind of going into it or are you like getting what bank that they use?
No, I just ask. And it's just in the beginning, there's no trust built up yet, but I have asked that question so they know, okay, I got two options. And the purpose of asking that ahead of time is because a lot of these seniors, Oh, money order. Oh, I want to do check by mail. You're going to hear objections come up when you ask that question.
So
And that's the
if
goal
they
of it.
want to check by mail.
Ah, yeah, I understand. Yeah, actually, these carriers, Johnny, they don't do that anymore for a couple of reasons. One, fraudulent activities, but two, a lot of families they were finding were tied up in the hospital and they couldn't make their payment. Policy lapsed, and unfortunately, people do pass away in the hospital. So it's just not a good place for anyone. But with that being said, unfortunately, if we don't have access to a checking account or we don't have a direct express card, I cannot help you today. And then I end the call.
Yeah.
Like I don't need to waste my time. I have, again, how many ever I have all these leads that I can't even keep up with. So why would I'm not going to waste my time.
Yeah, that's really good. So what are some like things that most agents like don't know or like think they know that like they should know? Like if you were to be like, hey, coming into the industry, you need to know these things. Like I wish I knew these things before I got into the industry. Like what would you say for that?
I think people don't, I mean, golly, they don't know what they don't know, right? I mean, I think you just don't know what makes a good IMO and what makes a bad IMO. And I really do genuinely at my core feel like that's why people fail. You don't, you, there's so much hype and noise, and this is a volume type business. So the people at the top, these IMO gurus that, they make all this money and they're chilling on a beach somewhere, but they're recruiting you, telling you can have the dream as well. And there's no training, and no one genuinely cares about you and your growth and how you do. And here's kind of my thought. If you are coming into this industry and you are looking at an IMO and they have a contract packet for you to sign to join, probably not, just in my experience, probably not the best fit. Every single out of the 5 IMOs I've been a part of, all 4 of them has had me sign the 4 that failed and were not a good fit, I had to sign a contract for every single one of them. But again, my happy place, and I guess what does Duford say when he does the guiltless plug, or I don't know, whatever he says. But do what?
Kool-Aid or no?
No, not Kool-Aid. Like when he calls himself out and he's like giving him, it'll come to me later. But anyway, so shameless plug, I think is, what it's called. I mean, yeah, me finding Duford, there was no contract for me to sign. It was, we're going to be a good fit for each other, or as long as you don't owe debt, you're free to roam about the cabin, go find another IMO. And I think that speaks volume. And so when you are fine, and I'm sure there are other IMOs, there are other teams that probably function that way. But when you come into something, if there's like a thick packet of paperwork for you to sign, then something to me is like kind of off. Like you shouldn't, that shouldn't be necessary. Because I have also met and had, listened to experiences of other agents who have signed packets too, and they're getting really forked over on the back end after writing all this business, and then they're getting hit with a bunch of stuff, and contracts are just not good. You need a contract with the carrier, go get an AMAM or whatever you need, get those contracts are okay. Yeah. But between the IMO and yourself, it shouldn't. I think that's a big red flag.
True.
Coming into the industry.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up. So this has been really awesome. I know people got a ton of value from this. Where can people go reach out to you? Where can people listen to more content just like this that you have as you're building your channel, as you're building social media, you're putting more stuff out there for the industry to have? Where can people go watch that and find that?
Yes, so I am just now starting to put content out there, and it's all on YouTube. So I don't have an IG, I don't have a Facebook or anything yet, but if you just go Ashley Mullinex, you will find me on YouTube, and I do plan on growing and answering questions and really trying to just help agents out there the best that I can.
It's awesome. Well, guys, go subscribe to her right now. Ashley, thank you so much for coming on to the podcast. And if you guys haven't already, subscribe right now to the channel. Share this with a friend if you found it valuable. And we'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.